What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today I wanted to kind of do a little bit of a different video, and it's more on where my thought process is, with regards to the entrepreneurial journey, my 9 to 5, and then personal life. And I kind of want to just break this down because it's, we're starting to pick things up with regards to our purchases and building a property, substantial client base for property management. And that's chewing a lot of our time up, which is, I guess, expected as an entrepreneur, but I thought it would be just a little bit different and we would have more of a life outside of the business. But as the saying goes, if you're an entrepreneur, there's no work-life balance. So people that want a balance, I mean, I'd assume you could probably be an entrepreneur as well, but you're not going to grow as quick as you want it to, quickly as you want to be. I think that's one thing that I really found out and kind of hit me hard too as well, is that there's no balance. So if you're working hard, you have some big lofty goals, you're not going to have time to go and vacation with your friends or, go to the bars every Friday or, whatever you think is fun or enjoyable within your personal life. You're not going to have that time. And, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is what I've experienced. And I'm just kind of throwing that out there because sometimes people are like, oh, you can own real estate and be very passive. No, no, you can't be. You want to be active because that's where you're going to make the most money and also build the best reputation for yourself, especially when you're managing other people's properties. So this all came to fruition kind of within the last week and a half because, well, I guess a bit longer, but I want to make a video on it for the last week and a half. Because this past week, we had a few more tenants call in from our property management business, just asking for random things. For example, actually, two people locked themselves out of their unit. One was due to a key being broken in the lock, but then the other one was uh, due to this tenant who was hungover from the night before, just completely forgetting that his keys were in the unit and walking out. So it's unfortunate because I say that because we had to take basically an hour of our time to go down there, unlock the unit, and then come back. So that's just one thing where it's kind of constraining us to the Buffalo area with regards to like not being able to travel or go anywhere for more than 2 or 3 days because we have to be within the area just in case these calls do come about. And it's not only that, but it's like, the CO2 detector was going off in a unit. And this lady, blew up our phone saying, hey, I'm getting annoyed with this beeping. Please come and fix it, which is totally understandable, but it's not an emergency. So unfortunately, we're not just going to drop everything that we're doing that second to go help you. So we scheduled it for the next day. I think she texted us like Saturday afternoon, and we scheduled the replacement of the CO2 detector Sunday. So it's just those things you have to deal with. But not everyone's going to be managing properties, or other people's properties. But I kind of want to just, guys, generalize this as what an entrepreneurial journey looks like. And it's not all glamorous as people on Instagram or YouTube make it out to be. I mean, there's some, I think, Tom Cruise. He's not the actor, but this guy, Tom Cruise, is a investor in Section 8 rentals, and he's down in Miami. He's like living the life. He's making like $1.6 million a month on these Section 8 rentals, and probably some of that's from like the courses he's selling. But it's just insane, like compared from what we're doing to compared to like what he's doing. I mean, just the scale wise, he's doing a lot more than us, but just the life he's living, I guess that comes in time. So I kind of want to just, make this video based on like the struggles that, we're going through right now as entrepreneurs. And this way you can relate to it and not feel like you're left out because I feel like they sold me the wrong story. Um, no, but yeah, so I guess like one thing, what my life actually looks like now, and it's broken down in between the 9 to 5 and doing the renovations on the units and doing the maintenance for our clients on the property management side of things. And I mean, right now we're going to be closing early May on the 20 unit. So I'm talking to the broker, talking to our lenders, making sure that the lender has all of the information that they need financially to underwrite this deal. And so talking with them frequently, 2 or 3 times a week. And in between, I'm doing the 9 to 5 work. So responding to emails, doing the spreadsheets that they want me to do. But, if I take a call for the lender, the broker giving me a call, then, I'll do that. But also it's, reaching out to our insurance broker to find out what type of insurance policy we need to, adequately cover us, cover the 20 unit. So we don't get into a huge insurance legal battle if something does go wrong. So that's, taking up most of my week. And then also I have time to go to the gym, and I have time to go to church on Sundays. And then also I'm doing this Exodus 90 group or fraternity, whatever you want to call it. And for the Roman Catholics out there, we're in the Lenten season now, and Easter's coming up. But this Exodus 90 is from the beginning. It's basically extended Lent. It's from the beginning of January to Easter Sunday. So doing that, church on Sundays, and then just getting back to work. We're going to have a lot of work coming up. I mean, we have a unit coming up for vacancy tomorrow. So we're going to start the renovations there, which I'll keep you updated. And that's basically going to be most of April. And by the time we're done with that, we're going to roll right into the 20 units and start knocking those out. So as you can see, it's just, going back to back to back. And on top of all of that is you never know when those maintenance calls are going to come in from the property management side of things. So that's why, we're keeping as close as we can to Buffalo, building the reputation, building the companies, and then hopefully, 5 years down the road, we'll have enough of a reputation and also a critical mass for the clients and property management and our own portfolio that we can start breaking away for extended periods of time, but also breaking away to invest in other areas. So right now we're solely focused on Buffalo. But I also mention all this because, the amount of friends that you have as a driven entrepreneur, in my opinion, is really low. And correct me if I'm wrong. If you guys are like in some other groups or in a bigger city, please let me know. I might just be self-isolating myself to a higher degree than I should be. But, I don't go out and drink. I don't really, talk to much of my friends that I graduated from high school with. Not because I don't really like them, but just they're on totally different paths. And I want to be as productive as I can. So like going out and getting drunk on the weekends and having to, hangover, or just even a slower morning and you're not on top of things is just not where I want to be. I want to get as far as I can, as quick as I can. So that's kind of, why I've been isolated more and more. But again, I don't want you guys to think I'm the victim here. I'm just putting this out there for your, benefit. Maybe you can relate to this. And if you can relate to this, drop a comment below. I'd love to hear like what your story is about. And, also if you can relate to this, hit the like button too. Yeah. And I guess with all of that too comes the comparison, where you're comparing your life to other people's lives. For example, friends on Instagram, or, whatever it might be. Like, you're definitely going to start comparing yourself. And I do that quite frequently. And I question if, I'm on the right path or not. And it's, because things just happen slowly. You're in real estate, which is, if you're going to grow a lot of wealth, it's a long-term game. If you're trying to get rich quickly, you're in the wrong realm. And it's, you're saying like, all right, well, if I buy this property, you're looking at the numbers and you're probably thinking like, is it actually going to perform? And also, like, when we first started off our property management company and brought on our first client, we're like, okay, we're making $350 a month now. That's not even paying for the lights to be on. So there's a lot of like doubts you're going to have, but you just have to keep pushing through and, making progress and knowing that this is going to pay off. And again, I'm a strong believer, and you almost have to be delusional with respect to that it's all going to pay off, because there's times where, when you're first starting off a business, you're just like, oh man, this is scary. You don't know how it's going to work out. Where am I going to be in 5 years? What am I missing out on today that, I'm going to regret 5 years down the road? And I don't think I'm going to regret anything that I'm doing now, but it's just that statement that you have to convince yourself of, that you're going to be better off than everyone else. And not saying like you're, because that's, your ego, pushing you to be better than anyone else, but it's actually what you're doing now and how you're setting yourself up for success. That's, you're going to, be ahead of everyone else. Another thing that I also wonder is like, if I should be in a bigger city, and if I'm also pushing myself hard enough. The numbers, when you're looking at like our income, haven't dramatically changed year over year. I mean, just a little bit, but nothing crazy, like nothing like life changing. But once we start adding this 20 unit, once we start adding, 20, 30, even 40 units next year, that's when we're going to start to pick up on the income level. And I guess I would like to mention one thing with respect to, cash flow and income. As you may know, my brother and I own and operate a landscaping company. And one regret I do have is not keeping that company operational and finding some laborers to work for us, because that was putting off a lot of cash, and we could have used that cash to invest into real estate today. But at the time, we were just tired with it and didn't really think too clearly on keeping, continuing those operations, because we're basically doing that same thing with the cash flywheel perspective with the property management company. So that's going to be putting off a bunch of cash 3, 4 years down the road. And we're going to be able to push all that cash into investing in real estate and building that multifamily portfolio to 1,000 units, which is our goal. Yeah. And as you guys know, with real estate, you're not making a lot of money up front. And the whole bet is that the rents are going to increase over time. You build equity, you pay down the loan, and the property, appreciates. And then in a few years, you can refinance or sell, and then that huge chunk or lump sum of capital is what pays you. So that's the whole idea. We're going to hold on long term to all of our properties. Just mentioning, where I am in my story and in my journey, and why, we're continuing down this path, because there's many faster ways to make money up front. And the path we've chosen, we're not making a lot of cash up front. And if you wanted to, at 23 years old, you could be flipping homes. If you want to stay in real estate, you're going to make a lot of money up front if you're good at sales. Basically any sales job. If you're a car salesman, or if you're selling for insurance, or whatever, medical equipment, then you could be making a lot more money up front. But also you could be in an e-commerce business or social media marketing, and that's going to put a lot of money in your pocket today than what we're doing. But here's how I look at it. So with housing just getting more and more expensive, it's also getting harder for people to buy homes. So that means they're going to rent. And also our generation, or the generation that you are in, maybe it's a Gen X or Gen Z that are watching this, is they don't want to deal with a lot of the maintenance issues. So things that come up, and they want to have the ability to travel without having something that's holding them down. So maybe they want to rent 2 years in LA or 2 years in Buffalo, and then move to Pittsburgh, or move from LA to Miami. And if you're buying a house, you're kind of constrained to that area, especially at a young age. So if you're going to rent, you have that flexibility, and also the idea, no headaches with regards to maintenance. All you do is call the property manager or the landlord. So I think where we're positioning ourselves right now is very good for the long term. And I know it's the slowest path, and unfortunately that doesn't line up with you know that doesn't line up with my personality of being patient. But I think, just thinking the long-term picture, it's going to be the one that compounds the most over time, versus something that's in social media marketing or e-commerce. And that's why, the bottom line is we've chosen to go into long-term real estate. As you know, we're trying to build a portfolio of 1,000 units, and that is the long-term goal. Every single week, there's going to be something that's a roadblock, either a tenant complaining about their faucet, or bigger things happening, like a flood in the basement, or whatever it might be. We're going to have to deal with those issues. And right now, it's just getting accustomed to responding to those issues, and also not being irritated by the problems that do come up, because that's where you're going to throw yourself into a big tizzy that's maybe you can't recover from, or you just throw up your hands and say, oh, that's it, I'm done, I don't want to deal with this anymore. But we're going to keep at it. I want you to feel like, again, I'm the victim in any case. This is the life I've chosen, and I wanted throw this out there to see if you guys can relate to this. So if you can, or if you're on your own journey and having struggles, I'd just like to drop a comment down below. I'd like to hear what's going on, if you can relate to something like this. And also, if you got, of course, value out of this video, give it a like, please. And I will actually have some great videos coming in the near future, because we're going to get into this unit and start renovating it. So look forward to throwing those on YouTube, and we'll talk soon.